Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the, 1st of May 2024. Sorry, this is a little bit later than normal. I had to do my mapping update and a bit of a tough night talking bollocks at the pub with the mates. We talked a lot about things like Ukraine, philosophy, politics, went round the houses. Too many pints of black sheep, and my head is in the wrong place. Nonetheless, I will endeavour to get you the information about what's been going on. And actually, there's not a huge amount of news across the categories today. The Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before, all the usual caveats apply to that. You can find them in the description to the video below. We have another day of heavy losses for personnel, 1,120. Over 1,000 for the third day in a row. 5 tanks, 21 APVs, not the biggest number, although 21 APVs in a day is that must sting a little bit. 13 artillery systems, below average there. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag. 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, 33 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 3 pieces of special equipment. We do not have Andrew Perpetua's loss list at the moment. That'll come out later today, no doubt. So I'll have to bring that to you tomorrow. So yeah, heavy on the personnel losses. Other categories not quite so high as normal. And speaking about personnel, here we have War Translated saying the Russian Penal Battalion instructor here speaks with pain in his heart about the only working method of the Second Army in the world, which is throwing corpses at enemy trenches, while the media and propaganda tell tales of heroic advances at the front. He is well aware of what lies behind the victorious reports and the principle of moving forward, quote, at any cost. This, I guess you can talk about, say, what's going on in Ocheritina in the Avdiivka area, where the Russians are moving on at quite a pace there, but the question is always at what cost. So let's just read through this. It's as if they are actually fighting in Mikhailov's famous Russian pro-Kremlin director film. They diligently cosplay famous characters played by Madyanov. They made the concept of penal battalions absolute. In principle, they make all these false and vile tales about the patriotic war, which I suspect they themselves believe. They are wooden and too self-confident. This is from personal correspondence in which someone, let's not point fingers, tried to promote a specific operation plan. They don't learn from mistakes. They don't seem to give a damn about these mistakes at all, partly because they don't even realise them. Being incompetent themselves, they are extremely jealous of those who really can and do, because compared to them, they look like mediocre butchers. And they try to erase such people or even squeeze them out of their departmental community, in which, due to circumstances, they see the corresponding trends. They set the corresponding trends. They took the principle of at any cost to the point of absurdity. Moreover, behind this at any cost, there is often not so much a result as the process itself, but they don't give a damn. The main thing is to catch the medals of valor and heroes on their chests. They don't care about people's lives. For the third year now, we have seen with our own eyes how they are diligently excused and covered up, since departmental leadership apparently is more concerned with the issues of muffling turbulence and maintaining an image. It is incomparably more difficult to be than to seem, and honour does not convert into bonuses but creates unnecessary anxiety. So this first page is all about, massive complaints of incompetence up the hierarchy, and perception is more important than reality. So they are perceived to be making successes so that they can get medals on their chest, but this is using the at any cost method, which is one assumes throwing troops at the problem, irrespective of how many personnel are lost. Anyway, he continues, biased media mouthpieces from loudmouth mastodons of officialdom to lagging lackeys enthusiasts not only shyly avert their eyes but furiously kick back from all the insanity that these amazing commanders are performing en masse on the ground. Therefore, those who write something like, I was killed near Avdiivka in a nameless tree line, must be carefully kicked with goat hooves because they spoil the victorious flair. And I really strongly suspect that when all of this is over, this whole effing media pack will be all the more frantic in defense of the commanders who shone with their amazingness. Since we won, it means we did everything right. F no. This whole effing strategy of inflicting 1,000 cuts from those shell shocked by the long echo of Brizilov's breakthrough for ordinary Russian people's soldiers, glorified by the officialdom, comes down in practice to a simple formula. Get effed in 1,000 places. I didn't come up with this. This is a verbatim quote from a recent conversation on the topic with a comrade who came for his leave. And why? And all because in most sectors of the front, due to the lack of the proper quantity and quality of means to support attacking actions, including fire and banal unprofessionalism, these attacking actions turn into feeble-mindedness and courage attractions, as a result of which enemy informational campaigners generously scatter bodies and burnt armoured vehicles across the fields and tree lines, but you can report on maintaining the strategic initiative and increasing pressure. Today, we generally have one and only sector in which operational tactical success has actually been skillfully achieved and developed, with the destruction of the enemy's defences. At the same time, this success was initially achieved because they gave the initiative to the commander of the assault squads and not to the stupid go there and established interaction between the units. Can you imagine? It turns out that you can do this and it suddenly works. Well, the rest is the same heavy and bloody gnawing of defence. So I don't know where that place is. But it's interesting that they say there's only one place on the front line where decent tactical nous has been applied to that sector, and the Russians have had success on the back of that. Everywhere else is just throwing people consistently and equipment at the problem. That's how I interpret this. Well, in conclusion, fiery greetings from distant March 1942. Quote, "You're wrong to think that successes are achieved by human meat. Successes are achieved by the art of combat. They fight with skill and not with the lives of people." Georgy Konstantinovich Zhukov. And I assume that is being quoted with some degree of irony. So anyway, that's a very verbose account of what is going on. But you get the sense of, all is not well. However, the Russians are making some inroads into Ukrainian territory, so that again is the calculation they're willing to make. Got some footage of 2 book systems being destroyed here in the Sumy region, it appears. So that's interesting. That looks like these are books over the border into Ukraine. So the AFU Special Operations Forces reported destruction of 2 of these books during reconnaissance in the Sumy direction. And then we have, this is just one of several pieces of video. I think it's interesting to show this to see just the amount of destruction that litters the roads and fields of Ukraine. So as a result of the work of Ukrainian FPV drones, one of the roads between Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar. So here you have just vehicles blown up consistently. I mean, these seem to be mainly Bukankas and SUVs. Carrying supplies and whatnot, as opposed to infantry fighting vehicles, but just one after another, and then we get you can't even tell what that was, and 2 other larger vehicles there. So that's a sort of landscape that you get to see, sort of vista you see when driving down the roads near the front line. Okay, moving on to strikes, distant strikes and whatnot overnight. There were the only official comment from Moscow is that they intercepted 6 drones fired by Ukraine. 3 were brought down over Voronezh, 1 in Ryazan, Belgorod, and Kursk. Russia's MOD doesn't tell us how many they missed. So what's this in respect to? Well, overnight, Ukraine's special services have launched another successful attack on the Russian oil industry. Drones attacked a refinery in Ryazan. Local governor admits drones attacked but makes no mention of hits at the plant. And there was another attack in Voronezh as well. I don't know, the damage seems to be more obvious to the Ryazan one, not sure of Voronezh. So Kyiv Independent reports that the HUR sources confirm strikes on Russian oil refineries, military intelligence. Sources confirmed to the Kyiv Independent attacks on Ryazan and Voronezh oil refineries. The first 4 explosions could be heard at the Ryazan refinery at around 2 a.m. local time, after which a large fire started on the facility's territory. It's not the first time that place has been attacked either. You can see fire in the distance there and burning in several videos. Several Russian Telegram channels report on Wednesday night unidentified drones attacking the Ryazan oil refinery. And yeah, that's that. In the distance, you can see it's on fire, so definitely some damage done there. This, although it says in addition to the Ryazan refinery, 2 drones also attacked the Voronezh product refinery. Although that fire there, I think, is a Ryazan one. It has been geolocated now. 1 drone fell on a territory of the Voronezh neft product in the village of Staraya Pokrovka. The other seemed to have been shot down in the suburbs of Voronezh. So possibly not any damage or not too much damage done to Voronezh, but certainly Ryazan seems to be hurting. At the same time, Russia missile attacked Odessa, killing 3. Odessa's been under loads of pressure over the last few weeks. They've really upped the ante, the Russians, on that part of Ukraine. A number of civilians have died as a result of those strikes over the last few days. So moving on to other bits and pieces, but staying really on the strikes topic, Ukrainian drone strikes were successful in putting pressure on Russia's fuel supplies, causing gasoline and diesel prices to surge for Russian consumers, according to Politico, writing a couple of days ago. The cost of diesel has gone up 10% in the past week, while gasoline's price, so petrol's price, has hit a 6-month high, going up more than 20% when compared to the start of the year, according to Politico, citing government data. So Tendar says of this Politico article, which is titled Putin's Fuel Problem, How Ukraine is Sapping Russia's Diesel and Gasoline. Ukraine is taking out oil refineries inside Russia, cratering Moscow's supplies and sending local prices soaring. Quote, diesel prices for Russian consumers have skyrocketed rising almost 10% in the past week alone, according to the government's figures. Petrol costs have also hit a 6-month high, up 20% from the start of the year, as supply tightens and more facilities are forced to suspend production. Tendar then says, like I said before, those operations are extremely easily prepared and efficient. Ukraine would be foolish not to go this way. Russia is severely feeling the pain, and there is plenty of room to inflict more pain. It will have an impact to every part of Russia's war industry and eventually to everyone's life. There is probably no better way to bring Russia's extremely uneven economy better out of balance than executing those strikes. The best part is that we are still seeing only a handful of drones swarming Russian skies. We are still only at the beginning. It is the most efficient sanction against Russia. Right. Several things to say about this. He's absolutely right that we are seeing, I was expecting larger waves of drones to be seen, although I think there are larger waves that are sent that quite a few of them I don't think get to their end destination. I would like to know the success rate of those drones, of those larger attack drones. I mean, this was 470 kilometers behind the front line, over the border. So again, another fairly long distance strike by the Ukrainian drones there. They have to travel a long distance, and the longer they travel, the more chance they have of malfunctioning and being acquired as a target, shot down, or brought down by electronic warfare. So, it is risky for these drones to be sent so far, but they do seem to succeed, and the return on investment is quite obvious. Now, I don't know how much there is this issue of the economic argument from a US administration that is just about to go into campaign season for the elections in November 2024. I don't know how much issues of extraction, refining and transport of those hydrocarbons in Russia. I don't know how much affecting that will affect prices in the US, and whether that is part of why the US administration is saying please don't hit these targets. We are still seeing Ukraine do this. I wonder whether they would be doing it more if the Americans hadn't said that, or whether this is them doing it at full rate. I don't know. They have to play around with lots of different variables here. They obviously, I think, would want the Democrats to get back in due to the ongoing issues with Republican support for Ukraine. And I'm not trying to be political here, just that's the reality on the ground. They know what Trump thinks. They know what Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and Donald Trump Jr. and, other Republicans around the periphery, like, Elon Musk, David Sachs, Tucker Carlson. All these people are splurging their ideas about what Ukraine is and who Russia are, and I think that they would much rather back a Democrat victory. And if the Biden administration is saying please don't hit these facilities because it might affect a victory going forward, then of course that really compromises Ukraine, because this is a relatively easy objective to achieve for the Ukrainians. And I don't know. I would expect more drones to be used. There's this talk that they've really scaled up the drone production, and yet we are seeing not a huge number of drones being used on a fairly consistent basis. But just I don't know. Let me know what you think about that whole situation. Of course, they are using. I mean, Rebar's claiming that Ukraine has used over 30 ATACMS in the last couple of weeks against targets in Crimea. So they are hitting a variety of targets, of course. Russians in occupied Zaporizhia doing what Russians do everywhere, says Jay in Kiev, looting at industrial scale. Most private property will now be transferred to Putin's gangsters. This is what life is like under Russian rule. So there are various reports that in the Zaporizhia region, empty apartments that are empty due to people fleeing the war zone or fleeing to Ukrainian-controlled territory, they are now being hoovered up by the Russian administrations and auctioned off. So in occupied parts of Zaporizhia, says Mamedov here, the Russian administration is preparing for mass mobilization of nationalization of land. You can't mobilize a piece of land. Nationalization of land plots. The owners of the plots have been given only a month and a half to confirm their ownership, which is possible only in person and with a Russian passport. Very clever way of doing things for the Russians here. You can only do anything if you've got a Russian passport. We are naturalizing you against your will, and you have no other options, because otherwise you don't get paid, you don't get this, you don't get that, you don't get your right to your property. However, most of the owners left before the occupation and are in danger if they return to the occupied Ukrainian territories. Such actions constitute violation of international humanitarian law, as they are aimed at forcing Ukrainian citizens to obtain Russian passports or lose their property. And so it's illegal, but it's happening there, and it's a real challenge for the long-term viability of these regions. Just the longer this war goes on, the more brainwashed people will become, the more difficult it will be to reverse the ownership situations, and the more difficult it is to reverse everything about these areas. I think the Donbass is the most difficult region. I think Crimea will be actually simpler as an area to liberate and to bring back into Ukrainian hands. I think places like Donetsk Oblast will be particularly challenging for the Ukrainians. Anyway, that's enough from me for my first video. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.